This is our open source Intel news brief. I tell you some shit that happened between our last meeting and this one. This is a really easy one to pick stories from because I've had 2 months, so there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot more links that aren't going to be in here. This is the same time, speed, and everything last time. Go to the news links channel, go grab all the links. They're already there because I'm on the ball this month. So without further ado, let's see what we got going on. All right. Oh man, my presentation notes. Fuck. No, he fucked it up. Oh, damn it. Fuck. Shit. All right. I don't get any of my presentation notes, so this is gonna be great. Alamere Health fucked up. I don't remember how. Look it up. It's on the links. It's sure just terrible. Let's see what else we've got. God damn it, now my timing's, oh yeah, okay. So Wawa fucked up. Oh, I got pretty lucky on this one. I just took a screen grab of the fucking news story here. Got compromised back in what, October? Didn't know about it until December. All your credit cards are fucked. The Wawas aren't around here, so probably not a big deal to us. Life Labs has got a breach on their hands. Let's see, what is this? Some Canadian group, I think. And they got in trouble for having an insecure something. I don't fucking know. I know that they had a whole bunch of zipped up like MongoDBs. Upbit is some Korean cryptocurrency exchange. They got popped to the tune of $48 million, I want to say, 48.5. I know, fucking sucks to be Upbit, but apparently they're going to reimburse their customers, so it doesn't suck to be a customer. Centara is a healthcare company. They got fined $2.1 million for losing the records of 577 individuals. Sounds great until you find out that they have a annual market cap of about 5.3 billion. So cool, that didn't do shit. We've got a leak from this company, Online Vitalis. This is a Spanish company, I think. Hey, what do you know, an unsecured S3 bucket or some bullshit, who knows? Leaking a bunch of birth certificate applications, so plenty of sensitive information in there. We've got another leak, this one from Deerdorf Communications. Once again, an unsecured fucking bucket of some kind. This one leaking some cell phone records, as well as some other interesting side things, like I think text messages and 2FA codes. Maybe I'm getting that mixed up with another leak, like this one. That is the one that I was thinking of. So this one had a bunch of text messages that were leaked. This one did include a bunch of 2FA codes, a bunch of password resets and all that jazz. Real fun stuff if you knew about this and were monitoring it in real time. It was only open for 6 months, not a big deal, right? IPR Software is yet another fucking firm that got compromised, or had a leak, I should say, leaving some bullshit open on the internet. God, this one had a bunch of shit in this one. They're like a PR for a bunch of really big companies. Patrick Wardell is doing some more cool shit. So those of you that don't know him, he is a security analyst who does a lot of Mac OS malware. This is a continuation of the Apple Juice analysis that I talked about on November. We've got a group that decided to do a little bit more reverse engineering work and get cool lessons if you're getting into reverse engineering. This one on Discord. Interesting thing that they found here is that they are decrypting and inspecting all communications, presumably to make sure that you're not sending child porn and everything, but who else knows what they're doing there? We've got a full chain exploit for Firefox on Windows. Oh, god damn it, it's not playing the fucking animation. It's supposed to show a bunch of really cool ass Cthulhu tornadoes and shit. Yeah, it's awesome. It's remote code exploitation. Maybe it's going to trigger at 15 seconds. Who knows? I really wish I had my fucking presentation notes, guys. This is just a real buzzkill. Dude, I suck, man. This one isn't even going forward. I gotta cheat it. Oh, cool. There it goes. Wonder how long it was gonna fucking wait to do that. Probably forever. So now this is gonna play for 15 seconds. And I mean, I could go on to the next slide, but isn't it a lot more fun to watch me squirm up here? Like, it's uncomfortable. Oh, okay, yay, hooray! This was a managed security service provider that had a ransomware infection on their infrastructure that then caused about 100 different dental agencies to have ransomware deployed on their infrastructure. So, again, managed security service provider is cool. Anyway, we got someone who did a review of hardware-based password managers. So, password managers, good. Some people don't want those on their computer. Okay, I'll allow it. But good intentions really don't do shit if they're implemented poorly. As it turns out, these stored passwords in plain text and shit. A lot of Ring cameras are out there. Some of you maybe got these Ring cameras for Christmas because your families think that they're cool. And of course we want to get rid of that creepy ass shit, but with the amount of Ring cameras that are out there, it brings into question how easy is it to triangulate someone? Take a look at that article. We've got a really cool tutorial, interactive tutorial on buffer overflow exploits. So if you know someone who's looking to get into this field but they don't really know where to start, this is one of those basic things, one of those starter things that you learn about. A lot of us have to learn about it in a bullshit textbook. Have fun with it. We've got an article on ransomware stats for 2019. So cryptojacking was a big thing in 2017 and 18. And then the cryptocurrency bubble ostensibly popped. So now attackers are going back to their old favorite, ransomware. Some interesting stats for the year 2019 are posted there. On that note, the creators of the Maze ransomware have actually started taking a somewhat novel approach to trying to get more people to pay up. They are naming and ostensibly shaming their clients and basically saying, hey, here's who we popped, we're going to release your info if you don't pay the ransom. And for some companies, they pay the ransom to slap on the wrist, no big deal. Other companies, not so lucky. So the Heritage Company is a group that suffered a ransomware infection, and after trying to recover their data, didn't go so well. They had to fire about 300 people right before Christmas. This is an image of a university in Germany that's having all 38,000 students, faculty, and staff line up for password resets. This is my fucking nightmare, everyone. I work for the University of Missouri. This is a really cool proposal, so this isn't an actual standard, but canary warrants, warrant canaries, for those of you that don't know, your government sucks dick, and they're probably making companies do things that they shouldn't. And warrant canaries are a way for those companies to tell people about that. ASUS or Acer, I don't remember which. God, I wish I had those notes. Had an issue with some pre-installed software that they have on all their computers. Pretty sure it was Acer. So privilege escalation was one of them. Fuck, I don't remember. Look it up. We got a guy who made a relatively cheap USB kill switch for your computer. So for those of us who are super paranoid and probably don't have an actual reason to use this, you can attach it to your laptop, and then if someone rips you away from your computer, it'll automatically shut down. It's great. We had an awesome article from Wilbur Security, I want to say, from zero to domain admin in 36 minutes. So it was covering a honeypot network that they had where a cat went from nothing to domain admin. Take a look at how they did that. They pretty much just used what's available. So Cap1Me is a tool that came out, essentially just lets you carve out a little AWS instance where you have an environment that's just as vulnerable as Capital One was. Excellent teaching aid. Don't want to use that in production, of course. We've got another tool that came out from Cloudflare. They've introduced something called Flan Scan. So this is supposed to be a vulnerability scanner that doesn't suck. Essentially, they found that the vault tools that were out there weren't working for them, and they made this nice wrapper around Nmap that they can now use to scan their infrastructure. Endless SSH, I guess that's how you pronounce that, is a kind of trolly tool that doesn't do anything new, but does it in a kind of funny way. So essentially, if some asshole tries to connect to your server instead of just being denied over ever failed to ban, don't do that, just scroll an endless banner. So, toward the end of the year, you see a lot of organizations that are making, oh, what happened in 2019? And of course, now you see even more, oh, what happened in the last decade? I got a lot of those links handy. They are the news links. Look at them on your own. California Consumer Privacy Act. This is the basically local GDPR. So only in California right now, but I'm sure the other states will follow suit. If your organization shit their pants over GDPR, I can't wait to see what happens whenever they start thinking about the California Consumer Privacy Act. Python 2 is dead. What up? See, it's cool because we all cheered, but we all know that thanks to Stack Overflow, devs are still going to be using it for the next 10 fucking years. So, yeah, it is what it is. If you're still running shit on Python 2, stop. So FTLP.gov got defaced after the kerfluffle in Iran. I guess that's to say the least. There is a short document on that defacement, some interesting information on it. Feel free to take a look at that. We had an awesome paper release called SHA-1 is in Shambles. It's on fucking cryptography, which, I'm bad at math, guys. I really wish I had my presenter notes right now. Long story short, SHA-1 is deader than we thought it was previously. Every so often, the governments of the world start thinking encryption bad, and that's happening again. So the FBI wants to get into your iPhone again. This time to get information on the Gainesville, Florida shooter, I think. So yeah, hopefully they don't forget it anyway. Unsurprising to probably most of us, there are groups out there that sell tools totally only to government agencies, totally only for the reasons, for good reasons. This group had one of their information booklets and products leaked out. This is another ransomware one. I meant to put that somewhere else. So this is an interesting story in that an organization got compromised and their data ransomed, but then they took that data and started making ransom efforts on their customers. Triple down ransomware, fucked up. Android ecosystems got yet more problems, so came to find out that these US government subsidized phones have malware pre-installed on them. Yes, that's bad, but Android phones don't get updates after 3 years, so I mean, the whole ecosystem's fucked anyway. Erie got scammed out of 1.1 million. It's not, I don't even remember what state this is in, but someone posed as a contractor, and said, hey, can you change the payment account info to this account? And they said, yep, sure, that sucks. The EFF is giving us an awesome look into surveillance technology. So not just how your paycheck Sunday corporate overlords are watching what you do at work, but how businesses are fucking, using Bluetooth beacons to fucking track you as you walk around. It's fucking insane. RootNet is a thing, for those of you that don't know. So Russia is trying to ensure there's sovereignty on the internet. To do that, they are making their own internet. It's essentially a big intranet with some proxy connections to the outside. Sounds great if you're an oppressive government regime. Citrix vulnerability, we all heard about this, hopefully. Hopefully a lot of you have patched this because now the proof of concept code is out there in the public. And this is unauthenticated remote code execution. So again, if you don't know any of this and you run Citrix, fuck your life. And I guess that's the news.
All right, well, I guess we're getting started. All right. Hello, everyone. This is the Intro to Kali workshop. And my name's Ryan. I'm a pen tester, security engineer. Got my OSCP, OSWE, and I use Kali Linux a lot. We're not going to be covering a lot of the weird, crazy stuff we do with it all the time. It's going to be introductory. If you're wanting to get started out with Kali Linux, trying it out, using it for the first time, installing it, learning what it's about, that's what this talk is about. So just curious, show of hands, how many of you have used Kali Linux before? All right, great. How many are new to Kali Linux? All right, awesome. After today, how many of you, or anybody that might be interested in trying it out later, installing it? Okay. For one or two of you that might be interested, I have some USB drives that I preloaded. I've got 2 of them to hand out per talk. So if you want one, come see me after. Also, the slides, I'm going to go pretty quick, go through the slides. Then after, we'll just boot up Kali, look at some stuff. So if you want any slides later, you can find me by Renmizzo on Slack, Twitter, and Google. So message me up later there if you want to get a hold of me and get some of these slides. But what is Kali Linux? It's an operating system, kind of like Windows, Linux, Mac, right? It's a flavor of Linux. It's based on Debian. I'm a big Debian fan. Those that have worked with me before know that. And it's used, Kali Linux used for pen testing, hacking, security stuff. It's made and developed by Offensive Security, which is a company that does the OSCP. A lot of incoming hackers have been looking into that certification. OffSec, the company, actually maintains Kali Linux, and it came out in 2013. Before that, there was one called Backtrack, and I used Backtrack many years ago, so it's the successor to Backtrack. What's great about it is it's kind of become an industry standard. Again, it's kind of based on Debian. There's some links there. I'll have links and slides for you later if you need them. Again, why use Kali? If you're going to get into hacking, penetration testing, security, anything in the security space, Kali has a lot of those tools. It comes preloaded with over 600 penetration testing tools and other type tools. It's open source, it's free. You can vet and look at the source code on GitLab. There's common frameworks and tool sets. So unlike Windows, development happens behind closed doors. Linux and Kali, these are, out in the open. So you can go out and look at the development, see what's going on. And again, as I mentioned, it uses the Debian, it's based on Debian, so it uses the Debian package system. If you're going to install stuff on Kali, you'll use the same commands you would on Debian Linux. Again, it's mainstream. It's the recommended platform if you're going to take some of those OffSec exams, like the OSCP. And it runs great on VMware, VirtualBox. It can also run great natively on your laptop. So whether a physical machine, virtual machine, it's supported on most of your platforms. And more recently, they came out with a version that is supported on the Raspberry Pi. So if you have a Raspberry Pi and you want to load Kali Linux on it, there's a download for that. Can y'all hear me okay out there? A little bit louder? Okay. Is this okay? Okay. I was just saying you can install Kali on a Raspberry Pi now. So that's kind of a pretty cool new download. Just some of the popular tools you're going to find on Kali Linux that are already preloaded: Wireshark, Burp, Nmap, Metasploit, AirCrack, cracking tools, SQL Map, Dirbuster. These are some of the ones I use, and they're some of the more popular ones. So again, one of the reasons to try Kali out, it's already got all the software you need a lot of times. And believe it or not, there is actually a kind of an introductory Kali certification out there. If you want to try out Kali, learn more about it, there's free training. Here's a link. Again, if you message me, Renmizo, later on, I can give you these links, or if you just go and Google Kali training, and there's a PDF book that you can download. So the material you'll see in the slides are from those online. And I believe that the exam is $99. So you can do that through Pearson VUE. I've not taken it, but maybe having that certification exam as an incentive to learn more about it might be the way to go. It really starts off with installing Linux, just like you would Windows or anything else. You have to acquire the installation media, which is typically a file you download, an ISO file. You take that file that you download and you either put it on a USB drive or a CD drive. So what I've done is I've created a couple of these USB drives that have Kali already loaded. And the advantage to installing Kali yourself versus using a pre-installed, you can customize it. It offers full disk encryption. So everything's encrypted on your hard disk if you want that option. It also offers with USB sticks, there's a live boot. So you could stick this USB into your computer, boot up, use it, connect up, do some good stuff on the internet, remove it, you're done, no trace left behind. There's also a live boot with persistence. So if you want to put a little bit of storage on here and save your files, you can do a live boot with persistence. We'll talk more about that. Kali works great with virtual machines. So if you've heard of VMware or VirtualBox, again, and there's a link there on the training that I mentioned, but there's a lot of information about installing Kali online. What you have to decide on is, do you want to install it on your physical machine or do you want to put it on a virtual machine? What I recommend is just try to boot off a USB drive if you can and see how it runs on your machine, or install it on a virtual machine. You may not want to install and partition off your disk and wipe everything just to try it out. So again, later on, let me know. But the advantage, if you try out Kali and you like it and you want to use it more, you may want to install it on your laptop or your desktop because you can take advantage of that GPU, that graphics processor for cracking passwords and stuff like that. With the virtual machine, you may not have access to that horsepower that your system may have. We can talk about more of that later. It takes a little while to build a full install. Another option is virtual machine. Load VirtualBox, which we're going to look at here in a minute. And again, you can take snapshots and make a copy of your Kali install and all that. So you're going to be looking at physical install or virtual machine. Those are the two big things, or live boot. And again, live boot. Mention what that does. And those are your options. You go download what you want, then you got to roll your sleeves up and start installing it. So, when you go to download it, these are the options they're going to present you with. 64-bit, 32-bit, light, mate, ARM, all this stuff. You've got different X Windows flavors. XFCE is the new X Windows desktop. So what I would recommend, if you're not sure, go with the 64-bit and the default, which uses XFCE, but for those that have used Linux, and maybe you like GNOME, maybe you like KDE, there's different desktop managers, different looks and feels. You may want to try out some of these other ones, KDE, GNOME, etc. When you go out to the Kali download link, those are the options you're going to have. Next comes preparing your installation media. If you're making a USB drive, you're going to want to use, if you've got a Windows machine and you're going to want to create a USB drive, you might want to try out one of these three tools, Etcher, Rufus, UNetBooten. If you're on a Linux or Mac machine, like me, you can just use a command line tool called DD. There's a really good guide on installing stuff later. There's not enough time to install it today, but I'll have all the information for you later on if you want to install it. When you stick this guy in your laptop and hopefully it boots up, this is the menu you're going to get. You can go with the live option, it boots right up, or you can choose to install it over your hard disk. Again, I don't recommend installing it over your hard disk. It might erase your files. Until you're sure you're ready, go with the live boot, try it out. Get into some more of that. So again, like I said, if you're interested in doing the full install, you're going to want to try out that online training. Today, what I did was, one other option exists. If you want to try Kali, Offensive Security actually puts out pre-made images. So again, if you're going to take the OSCP, you might want to go out and download this OVA file from OffSec. It's a pre-made Kali image. You don't have to install it. You just have to import it into VirtualBox or into VMware. And so I'm going to show you some screenshots of when I did that earlier. It took me about 15 minutes, so we didn't have enough time, but first thing I did was, obviously, I installed VirtualBox, as I mentioned right there, bullet point 1, install VirtualBox. And here VirtualBox is installed. We're going to do import appliance right there on that menu. Second option down, we're going to go out and select that OVA file that we downloaded. It's about a 3 some gig file. It takes 15 minutes to download. As we import that, it's going to ask all these things. Just click import. A few minutes later, 5 minutes later, it should be imported. Now you've got a VM in VirtualBox. We're going to select that, boot it up. There was a couple of errors that I got. I had to fix those. So one thing, if you're not big at tinkering and fixing little errors sometimes, Linux might not be the thing for you. So keep that in mind. If you have any issues installing it, booting it up, I'm glad to help. Message me. I had to fix the graphics thing and the USB controller. After that, this is what you get when you boot up. Again, this is the OVA I downloaded from OffSec. I didn't install it here. I just imported it. Once it's up and running, you want to install Virtualbox Tools. If you're using Virtualbox, notice it's not full screen. It's a small window. With these commands, you can install Virtualbox guest editions, and that's the commands I ran there. And again, I'll give you that information later. Then when you reboot, it's full screen. It looks great. Everything runs a lot better. So that's all we're going to get into as far as installing it today. Once you get Kali up and running, you may want to be familiar with some of the commands to configure it, things like that. So I tried to come up with a list of bullet points, things that are important to me when I'm using it that came to mind. So first of all, you almost always are going to use root when you're on a Kali virtual machine. Typically you own that virtual machine, you own that server, so you can use root. But if you need to add additional users, you can do that with some of these commands. Add user, these are typical Linux commands that you would run anytime. So again, we can get those to you later. You're going to have your typical Linux network commands: ifconfig, adapter down up. If you need to reset your IP address, DH client. And if you need to edit your configs and such, those are some of the commands you're going to run. One of the things you can't do is SSH into your Kali machine by default with root. You need to edit your SSH config file. So once you get this Kali virtual machine booted up, maybe you want to shell into it from your Windows machine. Well, in order to do that, you need to edit this file and restart a service. I got a slide for that I can give to you later. Another thing I'll show you when we boot it up, it's got transparent windows that bother me. I like to disable that. We'll do this. Sorry. Workspaces, you got virtual desktops. Click between different desktops. We're going to look at some of these word lists. We're going to look at how you could install Apache, a web service, update your packages, and then we're going to open up some of these applications real quick. At the end of the slide, I've got credits here, links to all the applications. So I just wanted to make sure to give everybody credit there. With that being said, I'm going to just jump into it. So this is the one I imported, that OVA file. I'm going to boot it up. And you can see here, like, it's not even full screen, so something's acting kind of weird. We'll try this one more time. There we go. So as I mentioned, when you get booted up, Linux has a thing called virtual desktops. And so if you open something on this desktop, there's a button up here. You can toggle between two virtual desktops. Maybe over in this window you want to open a terminal, but in this window you want to have your notepad open. Windows, all the other OSs have something similar. But with this new version, it has something called XFCE, the latest desktop environment. You can click up here. I'll just call it the main menu or start button. Just type in what you want to load up. I'm going to put in Burp here and open Burp. It's a popular web testing proxy tool, and it's already pre-installed. I didn't install these after. So now that Burp's open, we can load up Firefox. And you're going to want to set your proxy, which is already set. So we're going to go out here and look at the SecKC website. We're going to run it through this proxy. And, oops. So already I'm analyzing network packets. Let me log over and look at the history here, and you can see here their responses and the network traffic back and forth to the SecKC website. You may have heard of Nmap. Nmap's already loaded. You can just use it. Maybe I want to port scan the router here and see what ports are open. We're doing that now. So the cool thing again about Kali, 2 more minutes, all these tools are preloaded. Let me show you how to disable that transparency in the window. If you go to File, Preferences, right here it's at 5%. I'm going to drop that down to 0. Boom. Now this is black instead of transparent. I like that a lot better on a big screen. A tool I use all the time is called Dirbuster. Again, it's preloaded, so I can fire up Dirbuster. Again, there's over 600 tools out there, so and maybe I want to go out and I'm not saying we want to pen test the SecKC website, but when we hit start, it's going to start ripping through that website looking for hidden directories and stuff like that. That may or may not be legal, so look into that. Don't just start scanning stuff. But bottom line is, if you want to get into penetration testing, if you want to get into hacking, Kali's where you should start. And yeah, I guess with that, we're running out of time. So are there any questions? And that is a good point. If you're wanting to do wireless testing, you may actually want to install it on your machine and not use a virtual machine. Because if you click up here in the corner on my network adapter, I just locked it, sorry. I don't have a wireless adapter on this virtual machine. I do have one on my Debian laptop. I don't have one on Kali. So if I boot it up from this, I'd be able to go up and manage my wireless just like you would in Windows or something else. And it would be something similar to this. You get a drop down, you connect to a wireless, but wireless testing in Kali is huge. So, so what you can do with Virtualbox is you can plug USB devices in, and you can do what's called a USB pass-through. So you can pass that through to the virtual machine. It does work. I have used multiple wireless adapters with the virtual machine before. So, but it just takes a lot of tinkering and testing it. But yeah, if you looked at the networks adapters on here, it just shows I have an F0, which is a wired connection. Well, it's not wired. It's because it's going through my main computer. So yeah, a million things. We could talk about Kali for hours. Let me jump back onto the slide here and my contact info. Please write that down, message me. I stay connected on SecKC Slack and Twitter. If you ever want to do any Kali, Hack the Box, if you're looking into pen testing, OSCP, reach out to me.
How much do I have to use? I've attempted to use it, and it's too confusing for me. So I typically resort to Nano. But my coworkers are like, "Why aren't you using VI? It's a superior editor."
Okay, good. You can do things. Come on in closer. I don't want to shout. We won't bite. You have to pay for that. So how much VI?
Very little.
Very little, very little.
Enough to get myself in trouble.
How much VI have you used?
I can move Rodload in a little bit.
I prefer using cat and file pipes.
Yes, dear. So you're just going to watch?
Yeah.
You should ask questions. Okay. And here you have with these stupid terminals that are semi-transparent, which I don't like a lot. All right, so there are a few basic things about the I. I gets you into insert mode. And it says at the bottom, insert. So you know you're in insert mode. You hit escape, you get out of insert mode. You go I and you're back in. There are a couple of other ways to go into insert mode. We won't talk about those yet. So we are in insert mode. Now, I don't like what I just did. There's an undo command. You exit insert mode, you hit U, and it undoes.
Does it undo everything you've done in insert mode?
Yeah, in that one insert mode session.
Okay.
So, insert mode. U and it goes away. So that's one thing. Insert mode, getting out of insert mode, and undo.
Just escape Q.
Escape, undo will also undo. And if you've already undone things, it'll redo them. At the old exchange. But just escape and then U will use the undo command. Let's say you've really screwed up and you hadn't noticed until just now how badly you've screwed up. You can undo this through a different way. You can go into command mode with the colon character. Well, you could say colon Q and it'll say, wait a sec, you haven't written anything. So colon Q bang meaning goddamn it, do it. That works, right? Just doing a bunch of deletes. Back up to the head of the file. And the rest of it. I don't like what I've done, but I made a horrible mistake. Colon E bang will re-edit the current file. And bring the file back without telling you, well, you've made changes. Just letting you start over.
So everything you've done since you've opened the file?
Or since you've written?
Been thrown away.
Everything you've done since you wrote?
Since it was written.
Okay.
So it brings back the file that's on the disk. So there are movement commands in VI, and movement commands are awfully important. If you've ever played Rogue, yes, awesome. You know about HJKNL for moving. H moves you left, L moves you right. Yes, that's counterintuitive. K takes you down, K takes you up. So, you can delete a line you're currently on, you can say DD, and that gets rid of it. You can delete the line you're on and the next line down, because J would take you to the next line down by saying DJ. Or you could say, I don't like these 4 lines, and say 4D. D. And they're gone. Now one of the other things you can do in terms of motion, you can search for things. I can search for my name, Fields, and it takes you straight to that line.
Forward slash.
You say slash. Forward slash, and then you can just enter a regular expression at this point. And that takes you to that line. Now if you want to get back to where you were, you hit quote, quote.
What was that?
Single quote, single quote.
Okay.
And that takes you straight back to where you were. Here we are at the top of the variable defining section where it's defining directories. Quote is how you reference marks. Quote happens to be the place where I last searched from. So we can make a mark. We can say mark A, and we could go to the bottom of the file with capital G. And then we can just say quote A, and it takes us back to mark A.
How did you create a mark again?
M.
Okay.
M for mark, and then a letter.
All right.
A. So now I put mark A here, so if we go to the bottom of the file, when you say quote A, we go back to there. If I don't like this, I can use marks to define a region. I can say mark A, I can say mark M. That's one I use a lot. Because it's just MM. It's faster to type without moving it down. So mark A, I can say mark B here. I go to the bottom of the file and say quote B, I get back right to there. Quote A, I get to there. So I could say D quote B. And that would delete from where I was to mark B. Let me undo that. Right, here's A. There's B there. So D quote B deletes from where I am to B. Or other movement. Your visible window is important. Capital H takes you to the top of the visible window. Capital L takes you to the bottom line of the visible window. Remember that bottom line is the actual bottom line of the display is the mode line, where it tells you things like your insert line. And that's where commands show up. So we can use marks in commands. We can say quote A, comma, quote B, from mark A to mark B. We could do something. We could substitute the beginning of the line, caret, in regular expressions. Everybody knows regular expressions? Yes? Awesome. And this is something you will do a lot once you know how to do it. Put 3 pound signs in space at the beginning of every line in that region. Just to comment a bunch of crap out. Because that's something we all do all the time. Let's try this. No, that doesn't work. Comment it out because I might use it later. So you can also say from mark A to mark B, delete. Quote A, quote B, delete. There we go.
When you do that, does it delete including mark A and including mark B?
Yes.
Okay.
So now mark A is not set and mark B is no longer set. But if we undo, B is there and A is there. So it's being very nice to us. I don't think original VI, which is NVI, which you probably don't want to know about, did that for us. And I'm talking about like 19, well, I saw it first in 81, and it's older than that. Ancient VI. It only worked on some terminals. Did not work on printing terminals. No. No, you can't do VI on printing terminals. No visual. VI does not work on a printing terminal. You could try, and it would go into line edit mode. That was gross. So we have motions. We have other motions like capital G takes us to the end of the file. Popo taking us back to where we were.
Is there a top of the file command?
One capital G. Or, if you're at the bottom file, you want to go to the top file, :1. A lot of the times when you are working with somebody else, maybe they're not in the same room, it's handy to be able to number the lines. :SENU. These lines are not something you can edit, but they're there on the screen, so the person you're working with can say, oh, look on line 27. Let's change this thing. And of course, every command you can do is set with, you can say set no, and then new for number. So, :1 takes us to the top file. How do you think we get to the bottom of the file?
Capital G. Capital G.
Capital G is the way to do it. Yep, that works. $$. Whoa. The dollars being the last thing, often in Unix. So we've talked about regions, we've talked about HJKML motions, capital H, capital L, top of the visible window, bottom of the visible window. But what if you want to look below here where it says latitude and longitude and decimal degrees? You just use your arrow keys and go down until maybe oh shit, I overshot. Alright, there's another way to do that. You can say Z. I don't know what Z stands for, but if you hit enter, it puts that line at the top of the visible window. It just scrolls it there for you. Z capital.
So Z is like
Z is adjust us to Z return adjusts the current line to the top of the visible window. Right, and Z minus takes that line and puts it at the bottom of the screen. So this week start Z minus Z capital Z return puts it at the top. Return when you're not in insert mode, it just takes you to the next line. That's another way to go a line down. Capitalization of things usually makes it work from where you are to the end of the line. So if I don't want anything else to the end of that line, all those delicious command line arguments, I can hit capital D, and that zoops it away. Two keystrokes. I could also hit $, and that does not work. You can delete one character at a time with X. You can delete one character at a time with key space. Hit key space. Now, if you're really good, you know that the last thing you did was right. Let's say you want to delete 5 lines from here. Let's say 5 to 8. Right, and that took out 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is it 5 to 8?
Why? The line of the person 4 lines ago, 5 to 8. Really? If you want to do that again, you hit period. And it does another 5 lines. Another 5 lines will take us to that winter. Can you all read that? Yes. So on and so forth. being able to repeat something that you did is good. If you wanted to look for an asterisk and delete everything after an asterisk, so you search for an asterisk, capital D, and it deletes from where the cursor is to the end of the line. You go to the next line like that, and hit period, it does the same thing. Period. It lets you just repeat commands that change the file. Like maybe you don't like the asterisk. So we could say 2x, which should delete 2 characters. Right? We search for the next one, hit period, 2 more characters are gone. Yep. Which, if you plan your edits, that's something you can sit there and do and make magic happen. I mean, you could, using a region, since I just defined mark A up where it says UV and mark B down at the out tab. You could do a substitution, define and replace, doing the same thing. For every asterisk followed by anything, replace it with nothing to the end of the line. Probably don't really want to do that. So we can put that back. If you hit undo and decide you made a mistake, you can say redo. Colon redo, and it'll do it again. So, D capital L, what? I've been using DI a long time and I still learn things about it.
I think anytime you watch anybody do anything new on VI, you always learn something new.
Yeah. So let's say, since this is actually a good file, copy that /10. Let's say I was wanting to play around with this. And what is I going to show you? Shown you regions. I've shown you a lot of the motion commands. Let's go to programming. Rather a configuration file. Well, here's text. VI was used to edit text in the day. One of the useful motion commands is close curly bracket, which takes it to the end of the paragraph. Should you ever use VI to edit text? I run Linux on my laptop, so I use them all the time. So you can go through the file and go paragraph to paragraph to paragraph. And with this, you can start a pipe command to run certain text through an external command. You could say bang for it to start a pipe, and then a movement command like end of paragraph, which it interpreted to be dot, which is the current line. Most of my experience, that's that line. To 9 lines below, which is the end of the paragraph, bang for pipe, and then FMT to format a paragraph if you've been writing things. You know, you can say capital J and it joins lines together. Made that into one line. So bang bang, which is pipe command on the current line, FMT, and it formats it. Oh, that that's bad. You could sort the lines if you really wanted to, if that made sense. There have been, like Richard had shown, when I was doing something earlier this week which I felt I couldn't show, but I can tell you about it. Basically editing an HTML file which contained URLs that led us to directories on the server where you could access those directories via web application. So I went and took all of those because the last person who was in there, I mean, it's been there and added to and subtracted to for years. So I went and deleted, someone had decided using the year, at least it was the 4-digit year, as part of one of the directory names was a good idea. That's okay, but we decided that we use no year for the current year. And really, when we're handing people access to log files, they only want to be looking at the current data. So I went and deleted all of those years. 2, 0, dot, 20, whatever. And then I had a bunch of duplicated lines because suddenly a lot of the directories became the same. So I went and typed a bunch of output through sort minus U to delete, sort minus U deletes duplicated lines, show me only the unique lines. And it also happened to sort the fuckers in alphabetical order because I went and set the separator to slash and told it that the active key to look for was 5N, which happened to be part of the directory path where the actual name of the subsystem was. If I'd set it to 6, it would have looked at logs. The 5 got me the name of the program that we were looking at. So that's just handy things you can do with VI. With another editor, you would come out and you would copy, swipe at the copy, Control Z out, start your sort program, and then however you're pasting there, which I didn't copy because I'm on a different computer. This is not Windows. Actually, I have to tell it to copy a sort, and then I can paste it in and hit Control D, and I get my sorted output, so I could copy that. Bring it back. Delete that, and insert back my sorted output. That's a pain in the butt. It's just easier to do it from within the editor. Sort all. Why not? Right, y'all know that the capital G takes at the end. So you can say D capital G and delete everything in the file. Boom, gone. One of my other favorite commands is the change command. Oh, good. Let's go back to movement. So little b takes you backward, W sends you forward a word. Right? So you could say DW, just get rid of a word. You could say 5 DW, get rid of 5 words. You can also say CW to change a word. Suddenly we're in insert. That would be your It's more than one word, but it's where it was, so we can reformat the paragraph and bring it back. So you could say C capital G, end up in insert mode, delete everything to the bottom of the file. you were ever in a situation where that was appropriate. BIM is good with Unicode. Yes.
What language is this, Andy?
That's Esperanto. that's Subgenius pamphlet number 1. You know what the Church of Subgenius is? You probably don't. It was started in the 80s in Dallas as a response to the megachurches. You'll pay to know how much you think, but you'll pay to know what you think. Praise Bob. Subgenie and I are always looking for slack. So here we have some program code. And this is for interfacing to an IAXY device which turns an old-fashioned POTS telephone that you can kill somebody with. You can't kill somebody with this. It's like stuffing it down their throats, or maybe if you break the glass or something with it. But a good old Western Electric telephone, that's a weapon. But you can plug a Western Electric telephone into it, and you'll convert rotary dials into SIP. So you can put it on a voice over IP number. So when you're programming, things you like to know. You can set SE is short for set, SM is short for show match. Right, so you're going and typing, type parents. Parents is supposed to be, there we go. It'll bounce over to the matching parent and show you that. The percent sign will also do the same thing. It will do the same thing on curly braces. It'll do the same thing on square brackets. I'll show you those. Square brackets, usually not a problem, knowing where they are. Curly braces, sometimes a problem. And just like with closed parentheses and anything else, you type a closed curly brace. It helps speed the insert mode. Type closed curly brace and it'll bounce up and show you that. You can also set auto indent. So if one of the other ways to go into insert mode is to type O, which opens a blank line below where you are.
You messed up, just rage quit.
There we go. And it goes, and when you're in auto indent mode, you can put your stuff here, or it'll just set you to the correct indent level where you're at. This file was indented with tabs. What if the standard was 4? So we set our shift width equal to 4. And in fact, we can use there is a command to push things back and forth, regions of text. So we can set a mark here, and then another movement command, if you will, is less than, the less than character. So you say less than, and then since we made mark A down where at that return statement, quote A, it just shoves everything over by a shift width. We can hit period and do that again. Similarly, greater than does the opposite. You can keep moving it. For 4 or 5 lines, not so much of a problem. For 50, beyond your vision, you can set marks and then just, pro tip, set your initial mark up top and then go to the bottom and do your unindent or reindent. That way your mark doesn't get lost. If you do it from the top, it'll do it once, but then you can't do it again and again. When you're in auto indent mode, so here we are. We want to indent in x equals 1. You really want to indent in. You don't hit tab. You hit Control T, and that'll take you in by your shift lift. And then Control D will bring you back. That harkens from the days before you could even detect that someone had hit Shift Control. Yeah, we're talking about a 7-bit connection and 9600 baud. If you were lucky. Try using it over a 300 baud dial-up connection. That's when you go back to the line editor. Talk about capital J for joining lines. You might want to shorten your functions to fit on the page. We have a coding standard that calls for that. You could do that. That would be really naughty, but you could do that. Any questions?
Why does this file assume it's on an ASCII system with like hard-coded character values?
Because it's old code.
Okay.
It's old code. None of this is 8-bit clean for this particular program. I don't think ASCII is 8-bit clean. I never found anything else. Yeah, there's really nothing big in here. Straight ASCII text.
How do you count the number of lines?
Well, you can do it in Unix.
Okay.
You can set the numbering and go to the bottom of the file, and that's 641 lines.
How do you save a file as a different file?
:W, and then a file name.
All right.
And you'll write it as whatever you gave it as. The original file name is still there. So if you make a change and then write,
It'll write to the original and not the new one?
File, not to the new one. Quitting AI, we know about :Q bang. That's important to know. That's one way. :Q will quit, and if you haven't made changes, it'll just drop you right out. If we deleted some lines, and tell to quit, or say no. when you know you've got a good edit, you can hit capital Z, and if you haven't made any changes, it'll quit. If you've made any changes, it will also quit. It'll actually write that out for you. And those configuration lines defining directories are all gone now because it wrote it out for me. It took me years before I was comfortable with using it. Very, very long time. But I administered hundreds and hundreds of machines at work, and BIs on every one of them. So that's what I reach for, unless I want to show my prowess at the command line. Do it with ED if I'm making specific changes.
Very much. Thanks, man.
You're welcome. Colorado Indians out.
Yep.
Cool. All right.
Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
So let's just refresh everybody's memory on how this works. I assume all of you are here to do together. We have 4 locations scattered throughout this room. We're going to have talks. The talks are going to be going on simultaneously. Each speaker is going to present twice this evening. So each speaker presents twice. We have 4 locations, 3 time slots. Okay, and if you pick up the paperwork on the back, well, sorry, I'm doing it out there. If you pick up, I've got a stack of paperwork in the back somewhere that lists the schedule and who's where, and because I totally cannot make charts, the first row is.
I'm just happy I got video output working.
So if you're reading back here, you go, wait a minute, why do we have that anyways? Okay, so the first row is located. So that's the rough format for tonight. Let's talk through where things are. We're going to have slides up at each location to help you find where to go. But just to run through that, we have main stage, which we're calling track 1. That's going to be right here because we're sharing space. Ginsberg's going to kick this off. He's going to be talking this direction. So if you're here for OSINT 101, Ginsberg is going, can I use your last name? Yeah, we just did that. Okay. So we're talking OSINT and I use his last name. Anyways, Ginsberg's going to be talking that way. Track 2, main meeting way IV. We've got Sophia back here doing Bitcoin to kick off this evening. So she's in this back corner from the audio booth. She's going to be presenting towards me. Track 3 is by the restaurant. That's a really, really special spot. We have somebody with an acronym name in the back that I still can't pronounce even though I've introduced him before.
That's okay.
And because we so value him, we have offered to close the restroom doors so we can't hear the hand dryers during his entire talk. So So we are going above and beyond for him. Lastly, for those that are left-right impaired, this is stage right. We had a little bit of an issue with screens, and so we have a very special red screen back here that he's getting to use, and nobody else in Golden is using a red screen. So this is stage right. He's going to be in the corner, and he's going to be presenting this way. So we're trying to kind of channel the voices so that everybody's not presenting on top of each other. That's the theory. We'll see how that works. We're going to start in just a couple of minutes. We have music and meet time between, so middle, switch up, move around a little bit, and let's see how this works. Thanks for being here.
Hey Jake, are you going to B-sides? Huh? Are you going to B-sides? Fuck yeah. Taking my crack at that capture the flag. Yeah, that'd be nice. Good practice.
There's not. I need to distribute like a 15 gigabyte file there. And I don't have to do that. Okay.
That's fine.
I'll show everyone how to use blowing shit and germs everywhere. When do we start? Whenever you're ready. I don't know the answer to that, but... Alright, I am RSAXVC, and this is a talk on SSH fingerprinting Ethereum mining rigs. For those of you, or just SSH fingerprinting stuff in general that is poorly configured. So, if you're not aware, Ethereum is a cryptocurrency. Ethereum mining rigs make that cryptocurrency. These are very high value targets, and there's a whole bunch of them all over the internet. This talk is going to show you one way to find them because of a misconfiguration in their SSH host keys. So a little bit of background, one of my buddies wanted to start Ethereum mining, which, as an aside, like, it's totally fun, it's not profitable, don't do it. But if you're just, wanting to do it as a hobby, it's kind of cool. Except that his mining rigs kept getting rooted, like every couple of days. So we changed operating systems, and then they got rooted again. He's like, Richard, what's going on here? And we found an old firewall rule that was letting SSH in, and that was, okay, that's the main problem. But the second problem is that we took a look at the SSH logs, and like there's tons of people that just scan SSH servers and brute force usernames and passwords. But the one that got in connected entered the right password and then changed the mining address to make them money instead of us. And then we changed operating systems, and it happened again with a different password. So how is this attacker walking up to a new port 22, looking at the initial connection and guessing the right username and password most of the time? Okay, so why do we need host keys? When you log into an SSH server, if you don't know that SSH server is the one you want to talk to, you are handing them your username and password. So, the host key is an asymmetric encryption key pair that identifies the server to the client. So the client says, oh, I want to SSH to my web server. Hey, I haven't seen this before. Are you sure this is the right one? Yes. I say yes because I recognize this host key. That's basically what it does. If you're an organization, you can use PKI for this, and I highly recommend that you do. But in this case, all these mining rigs, all these my personal random web server, I don't have PKI. So I just build the key one time, put it on the server, and verify it's the same, and add it to my trusted keys. This is what the key on my laptop looks like. It's a public key only that I am showing you. What's interesting about this problem is that you can do it with only the public key. You don't need the private key. So traditionally, the reason you don't want to share keys is that a bad guy could take your key and man-in-the-middle you. If they have access to your IP traffic, they could say, hi, I'm the web server, please log in to me, I'll decrypt your traffic, read the username and password, hand it off to the web server, or to the actual web server, and have your username and password, or take over your shell connection. So that's why you don't want to share SSH keys. There's a whole bunch of documentation about why this is a bad idea. But what we're going to talk about today is if a single key is shared across multiple SSH servers, an attacker can use that to identify those servers and the fact that they have something in common, some shared genesis of somehow they all share the same public key, which implies they have the same private key, which implies they might be the same operating system. They might be a clone of a virtual machine. Who knows what? So why would anyone do this? Usually it's because of a minor issue. They accidentally checked the host keys into version control and they thought that's fine because they're private and they're small, some company. Another common one is you clone a virtual machine and maybe you want it to share the SSH host key. Maybe you want all of your VMs to act the exact same way. That's a bad idea because if one of them is compromised, they're all compromised. But people do it. If you have a load balancer for SSH, which is kind of an obscure thing, it's basically required, or I haven't found a good configuration that lets you get around it. Lots of embedded devices have the host keys baked into the firmware. What you should do if you're an embedded device factory is when you build the device, the first thing you should do is feed it some entropy and generate unique keys in the factory where you can trust it, and then ship it to the customer. But a lot of times what happens is you have like an SD card that's like the golden image, and that gets flashed onto everything, and that contains the host keys. So let's take a look at a couple operating systems. These are 3 ones that did it right. If there's a file called first boot, delete the keys, make new keys, restart SSH. That works. You don't have to ship keys in your disk image to start with, but rotating them is fine also. I'm not sure which OS these came from, but they basically all kind of work the same way, or they don't ship keys. So that's good. So let's go, if we have an Ethereum mining image, like one of the many that are available, how do we get the keys out of it easily? I'll show you. Thank you. Okay, so this is a test image of some random operating system. I don't remember which. Oh, this one's only 4.4 gig. I would have distributed these, but I didn't have a way to distribute a whole bunch of 4 to 15 gigabyte files to a bunch of people I didn't know who were going to be coming here. So that's why I'm going to show you how to do this yourselves. One approach is to actually just mount this on a virtual machine and go. Another approach is test disk. And test disk is a super useful tool for like undeleting and stuff. So we're going to take a look at this disk. You have to select the partition table type, which is usually Intel, but sometimes EFI. It's more common EFI these days. This one is Intel. It auto detects. You go down to Advanced. You pick your operating system. In this case, you want to pick the largest one. The smallest one is probably where they keep some config files, like where your Ethereum address is and how you get on the internet. But we want to go to the big one. And we want to pick List. Or if it's a DOS partition, you want to pick Undelete. And now we can basically browse through the disk image and grab the keys real fast. So we go to Etsy, SSH, and we want two things. We want the host, the SSHD config. So we hit C to copy, and we copy it out. We hit C again. And then we have all these keys. We can grab the private keys, we can grab the shadow file, it doesn't really matter. The default password for these is usually known. We want the public key, and we want the key, specifically there are 4 public keys here. We want the one that Shodan is going to index for us, which happens to be basically in the priority order ED, ECDSA, RSA, DSA. So when Shodan connects, it only grabs, I think it only grabs one key. And in this case, we're going to grab this one. So we hit C to copy it, copy done. And there's our config. The only thing we want to check in the config is to make sure that the system is pointed toward the key. In this case, it's actually commented out. This operating system did it right and didn't ship it. They shipped keys and then they said, don't use these and make some up. That's fine. Had this been enabled, this would have been the key to use. So once you have the key, you have 2 options. You can scan the entire port 22 IPv4 address looking for SSH. There are tools to do this. Or you can just use Shodan. So I'm going to show you some results from Shodan for different operating systems that I've worked on. Okay, so we did that. Oh yeah, and if you only have network access, there's this tool called SSH Key Scam, and it just lists the keys for you. So here is my localhost key for SSH RSA. Here's my ECDSA. Here's my ED 25519. So those are the public keys running on my laptop. So basically, we would search Shodan or scan SSH ourselves at this point, and I'm going to show you some screenshots that have had the important bits redacted. So this was the first operating system that I did, and I just found one hit, and first I was just like, this is terrible. I did all this work and there's only one computer. Come on. But really, this was like, and then I thought about it and I was like, no, this proves that they're messed up. This proves that the SSH, the same host key that I have matches some other random one on the internet. This is awesome. These guys also have fixed it. They had one of the smallest exposures on the internet and they were the fastest to respond. These guys also fixed it. They had another one computer and they were like, that's a thing we should care about. These guys hadn't fixed it. Again, one computer, like, And then it started to get interesting. So here, there were 40 of these machines that are just like filled with video cards.
What are you using to show this? What is this? Like, how do you get that map?
This is Shodan, and we'll get to that in a second. I'll bring up Shodan if we have time for some more live demo stuff. So, and then there was another one that had 76, mostly in Eastern Europe. And then most recently there was one more that was just one random machine in China, which is weird because I thought China had banned cryptocurrency mining, but you can identify random cryptocurrency mining rigs in China. This is a Chinese-made OS, I believe. So I filed for 7 CVEs. Of the 10 OSs I tried, they all had they had separate keys, so I don't think they were at all related, but they had all managed to misconfigure the same way. And found 178 mining rigs online. This is just a sample size of randomly when I picked it and looked for each key. I'm currently working through with the vendors on asking them to fix this. I've given them some time. It should be as easy as deleting a file. Okay, how much time do we have left?
Did they give you the CD?
What?
Did they give you the CD?
They did. They gave me 7. So we have plenty of time, right? Sure. Okay. Yeah. So far, what we've done is we've taken an existing software and we've pulled the keys out of it and looked on the internet to say, does this have any friends? Are there any more clones of this VM or random thing? Well, we can also use Shodan kind of in the reverse, and we can say, Shodan, what if we just give me all the keys? Give me all the keys that you have, and I will sort it out myself. And if you were to write that Python program, it would look like this, and it would run very, very slowly. But that's okay, because as long as we sample a large enough population, which in the case of the 4 billion IPv4 addresses, we don't need a whole lot. As soon as we find like 2 SSH host keys that are the same on different IP addresses, we have something suspicious. So if you were to run this tool program, it would look like this, and it would barf out loads of keys. Okay. So, with a little bash scripting, you can take this this list of key value pairs that goes. The key in this case is the IP address. The value is the SSH host key from Shodan. With a little bit of bash scripting, we can turn this into a sorted list by most common key. And so now we have 9 keys. There are 9 distinct IP addresses with this key. There are 71 with that. This doesn't tell you anything other than those IPs are probably closely related in some way. They could all be routed to the same machine. That would also cause this. But if we were to take the SSH host key fingerprint in MD5 format and go pull up Shodan, you can search Shodan for some of the SSH keys. Other ones you cannot search because either the string is too long or it has a bunch of random symbols in it, and that causes Shodan to fail the query parser. I actually talked to the founder of Shodan about it. He's like, oh, just use the fingerprint and that'll totally work. The fingerprint is basically an MD5 hash of the public key. I don't know what this is, but there are 12,000 of them. I don't know what this is, but the internet is slow. So in this way, if you want to file some CVEs, you can use this and find basically if you can find a machine, a whole bunch of machines, figure out what it is or who to contact, it's a very easy way to get a CVE filed in your name. Of course, report it to the vendor, give them plenty of time to fix it. Yeah! Something in China.
Is that all China?
That's
44,000 in China.
They're still running 2
Holy crap.
Bunch of stuff. All this does is identify things. This doesn't get you access to any machine. It's just a way, it's basically a small information leak. And ta-da! So, are there any questions?
What is CVE?
A CVE is a
Common vulnerability
enumeration?
Yeah, I think so.
Common vulnerability enumeration. So every year they start off the counter at 0, and people find security bugs. And if you find a bug and you contact the vendor and report it to them, and then you contact MITRE or one of the partner CNAs, which is a CVE numbering authority, they will issue you a little thing that says, "Hey, on this date, so and so discovered that this thing was misconfigured. I'll just show you one."
Show us your CVEs, Richard.
I'll show you my CVEs.
I want to see them. It's essentially hacker merit.
Yeah, so it's like random internet points. It's not worth
put them
it.
on your section.
I mean, you can put them on a resume.
You can, if you want. I don't work in security. MITRE-stat MSOS before the date that was fixed does not have a unique SSH key for each instance of the product. Short description. I don't know how this is a 9.8 on CPS.
Wow! Damn! Richard! 9.8!
That doesn't. I wouldn't rate it that high, but yeah, this makes it really easy to look for things. Or in this case, I was looking at. Okay, so earlier I told you a story about how does this machine keep getting popped.
Yeah, how do they keep getting popped?
I suspect that what they did is they have an SSH client, and when it logs in, the client exposes like through an API, here's the public key I'm talking to, and then they just have a list of like, is it this public key? Use this username and password. Go. That's how I would have done it.
But they changed the password, right? Or did you say your friend changed the password and it still got back in?
My friend reinstalled a different OS, which changes the password, and it also changed the key. And so when they came the next time, the key had changed, and I think they just looked it up and said, "Ah, here's the new one. Let's go."
Was it default password or something?
Yeah, he thought it was behind a firewall, and he had like an old firewall rule that was letting it in, and DHCP never put firewall rules to DHCP IPs. That's another problem. Then your router forgets where stuff goes.
Well, I have a question. If you have a second.
I do.
So I thought one of your earlier slides said SSH_v2 host keys are bad. Did I misremember that?
No. Host keys are great.
Okay.
Sharing host keys is bad.
Okay. I couldn't remember the details on the slide. Okay. Sharing are more default, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So by default, I guess let's go back to the slide of the different operating systems. There's one thing I wanted to say that okay, if you have an operating system, if you want to stand up an operating system, you usually have an install CD or a USB drive or a network image. That's just the installer. As part of this, the installer will set up SSH for you and build the keys. That's how it almost always works. What's unique about virtual machines and Ethereum mining rig images is that the way that you distribute it is a disk image. It's already baked. It's already been booted somewhere. Same thing, you'll find this on like a bunch of Raspberry Pis where people distribute Raspberry Pi SD card images. They'll have SSH host keys that are shared, but they usually aren't on the public internet. I don't know why any of these things were on the public internet. Probably by accident, maybe my mistake. More questions? What's up?
So the way you started scanning the space in the first place was you spun up your own VMs to see like what host key it was giving you, and then you just looked for that same host key across the internet?
Yep.
Damn.
In this case, I showed test disk, but yeah, if you boot a VM and then run SSH Key Scan against it, it'll dump the keys that way. Some test disk does not yet support BetterFS. So if you have a VM, or if you have a disk image that uses that, you have to pull the partition out, which test disk allows. So test disk will set up DD for you just to extract one partition. And then you can just mount that in Linux and go in and take the files out.
Shodan is a website that hosts SSH API keys. What is Shodan?
Shodan is a website that scans the internet for just random crap. And so it'll scan like HTTP banners, SSH host keys apparently. And so you could, if you find a signature that like, let's see, I've got port 22, port 80, and port 443. This is a bad query because it's going to return a ton of stuff. You can say, Shodan, what on the internet has those 3 ports open?
Ding, 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 2-minute warning.
Oh, that's good. I was afraid I was going to be like completely out of content. All right, any more questions? thanks for coming to my talk. I hope you guys learned something.
I'm sorry, guys. Okay, so my name's Sophia Crossen. I have a master's in mathematics. My master's thesis was on the mathematics of Bitcoin. I delved a lot into the cryptography of Bitcoin and the math of it, obviously because if it's the mathematics of Bitcoin, I'm going to delve into that. I'm not really doing that tonight because most people that are here don't really care. And if they do care, they can't follow. So, but I do have, at the end I have a sources page, and if you are interested in the mathematics of it, my thesis is there, and in my thesis, if you don't want to read that, there's a whole bunch of sources where I got out my information. Alright. By the way, I currently am a data analyst, and I work for a contractor for a federal agency. Ask me later. Oh. Alright. Do you know what cryptocurrency is? Meh. Alright, let me get my note card out, because I have to read this. Hang on, I gotta find the right note card now. See? Okay. Cryptocurrency, there it is, okay. It is a digital asset designed to work as a medium of exchange that uses strong cryptography to secure financial transactions, control creation of additional units, and verify the transfer of assets. Okay? Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. It's one of the most well-known, if not the most well-known cryptocurrency out there. You can actually have a paper Bitcoin. If you lose it, you don't have that Bitcoin anymore, but you can, and they just use the QR code to buy and sell stuff with it. Okay, I think there's an offshoot of Bitcoin that's called Cash, Bitcoin Cash, something like that, that is only paper. So that's odd. I don't understand why. Why not just use cash? But, you know. Alright. So, with a cryptocurrency, they changed the privacy model. In a normal transaction, when you're dealing with your bank, when you're dealing with the sale of anything, the privacy wall is between the entire thing and the public. The public is out there. Your transaction, your money, your banker, whoever you're having a transaction with are behind that privacy wall. With Bitcoin, with a cryptocurrency, the privacy wall is just between you and everything else. So the transaction is out there. Everybody knows exactly what the transaction was, how much money changed hands. They just don't know who did it. They may not know what it's for either. But that's the only part that's kept private in Bitcoin is you. Everybody who's involved with computers knows that there's ways to track down who that person is, but it's not part of Bitcoin Base. Bitcoin Base keeps it private. You have to do other things to figure out who is involved in the transaction. You have to go through other links to do that. So that's the new privacy model with cryptocurrencies. This is an example of a basic, God, this is weird, of a basic transaction. One of the big things you have to remember, I want to go over one of the big things you have to remember in a Bitcoin transaction. I think it applies to other cryptocurrencies. I know it applies to Bitcoin. Is if I buy something from you for 0.0001 Bitcoin, because I'm not going to spend a whole Bitcoin on buying anything when I'm here in a bar, because that's $8,000. So I buy something for you for 0.0001 Bitcoins. And I transfer that Bitcoin to you. So my input is however much Bitcoin I have. Let's say I have 1 Bitcoin. My input is 1 Bitcoin. My output from the transaction is the 0.000001 to you. But my output also has to be the change back to me. If I don't have an output specifically designating that change back to me, it goes to the miner. It goes to the guy who mines the block. Okay, nice tip. 0.99999 Bitcoins. That's a pretty nice tip. But I wouldn't want to lose it. So If you do your own wallet, which you can set up your own wallet on your own computer, the code is out there, it's in the public, you can do that. If you set up your own wallet, you have to remember to assign the change back to yourself or you're just giving it away, literally. All right? Most Bitcoin wallets out there, the only one I can think of is Coinbase, but there are other ones out there. They automatically do that, but I would highly recommend you check that before you just take it for granted, because it doesn't automatically happen unless somebody intervenes. So this is basically just showing Bob with a transaction with Alice and where the money is coming from somewhere to Bob. He's giving it to Alice. Alice is transferring it on out to somebody else, okay? So basics, just basics in and out transaction. The big deal that you have to remember is the change. How the Bitcoin blockchain works. So over the course of 10 minutes, bunches of transactions are happening. At the end of 10 minutes, a miner collects up all of those transactions and puts them into a block. Okay? Once they're in the block, they have to provide proof of work. They have to solve a highly complicated mathematical cryptographic puzzle. In order to provide proof of work, I can tell you what that puzzle is and how to solve it, but most people are not interested in it. But they have to provide proof that they have solved this puzzle, okay? Once they solve the puzzle, once one miner or 5 solve the puzzle, they broadcast it to the rest of the Bitcoin network. And everybody else verifies. And then they start the next block. So every 10 minutes you do a new block, okay? Once that block is verified, as the proof of work is verified, you start a new block. And it just goes over and over and over, okay? So this is the basics of a block, okay? There are actually 6 things included in a block. 4 of them are listed here. In any given block, the hash of the previous block is included in it, okay? The timestamp of when that block was created, the nonce, which has to do with the proof of work, and the transaction root or the Merkle root. That's all of the transactions hashed together into one hash. All right. There's also the version, Coinbase version that's being used, and the difficulty. So the level of difficulty of the proof of work is included in that block as well. All right. So those 6 things are hashed together to create the block. Once you provide the proof of work and verify it, you move on to block 12. We're at block 50,000 something now. Okay. When you create blocks, as you might imagine, when you've got 1,000 people working on the same project at exactly the same time, sometimes 2 people are going to come up with the same answer or a similar answer at about the same time, right? That is when a soft fork, one instance in which a soft fork is created in the blockchain. So let's say a guy in the US and a guy in China, or a node in the US and a node in China, both come up with their proof of work at about the same time. They broadcast it. Nodes closest to them on the internet, so that could be anywhere, receive their proof of work first, and they verify both of their proof of works. And then once they verify theirs, 2 different blocks, they start working on the next block. Okay, so they verified 2 separate blocks at the same time. They're working on separate next blocks, thus the fork. Whichever one of those second blocks is verified first, proof of work is shown and it's verified, that's the fork that takes over.
Does everybody keep the first coin?
Does everybody keep the what?
So the forks exist, but do both coins exist or just the one?
Just the one. Just the one. So are you talking about the Coinbase coin?
Well, I was going to say, like, you have your fork here, this one wins, so this one still exists, this coin still exists, or it's just...
block.
Or, yeah.
Block. Okay, no, the blocks, it's called an orphan block, okay? And all of the transactions from that orphan block are ostensibly already contained in this other block. If there happen to be transactions that are not included in this other block that is now the live one, they know, and they include them in a later block.
So then it just goes on the fork that won?
Yes. And this one is an orphaned block, and it was there, but it's not there. Okay? That's usually what happens when a soft fork happens. So again, there's another way. There's a valid block but it arrived late. Somebody else already got it. Okay, so then there's something called a hard fork. This actually happened early in Bitcoin, at least once. They've included in the Bitcoin base code that it can't do that anymore. Hard forks can't happen deliberately, not deliberately, they can't happen accidentally anymore, okay? So a hard fork happens, and this can happen with soft fork too, but a hard fork is when new code is released, an update is released for Bitcoin base, all right? And these nodes are using the old code, and these nodes are using the new code, and they both continue making blocks on their separate codes. Okay? Now, that wouldn't last very long. Okay? But it did initially happen. There was one long hard fork. They had to do some stuff to fix it. All right? But it's included in the Bitcoin base now. There can't be that long of a fork even when there's an update. Unless you do it deliberately. So, there are a lot of cryptocurrencies that are based on Bitcoin. They are based on forks, hard forks off of Bitcoin. Okay? So, they just decided, some coders out there were reading the Bitcoin-based code and decided, I don't like that update. I think we should keep it the old way. Or, I don't like that update. I know how to code this better. So when there was an update, they took that opportunity to create a hard fork off of Bitcoin. Okay? So you've got all of these things in here. Yeah. They are a good chunk of them, you can see, still in existence. It is a separate currency at that point. Apparently, there are some that are still considered Bitcoin though.
Like Bitcoin Cash, right?
Bitcoin Diamond and Bitcoin Gold.
Bitcoin Gold is one of them.
I'm reading the different names here. There's Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Diana, and dozens. Yeah, there's dozens of others. So the Bitcoin Cash is not. Well, it says Bitcoin Cash ABC down here.
That was the hard fork that happened last year.
It doesn't tell me when it happened. Okay. But if you look, it's the brown one down here. Well, it's on red. Okay. This one, Bitcoin Cash. Okay. So that is not part of Bitcoin. It's technically, it's a hard fork off of Bitcoin. So it's based on Bitcoin. I haven't done any research into exactly what that means yet. It's a hard fork, so it can't be... Alright, so Bitcoin blockchain runs on a decentralized ledger, okay? So there's all these nodes all around the world for Bitcoin. I'm trying to get out of the way, it's really hard. There's all these nodes all around the world of miners of Bitcoin, all over the world, okay? Every single one of those nodes contains all or part of the entire ledger, the entire history of Bitcoin. So if I have a hash of a Bitcoin, because every Bitcoin has its own ID and every part of a Bitcoin has its own ID. Okay, so that 0.0001 I gave you, it's got its own hash. So if I want to find out the history of that fraction of a Bitcoin, I can trace it back to its creation. Because every single node has all or most of the ledger. If by some chance it doesn't have the entire update, if I query this node and it doesn't know, it just calls that node and says, do you know? Okay, until it gets me an answer. But it's decentralized, so it's hard to tamper with. You can tamper with this node, but what about that one and that one and that one? Okay. Blockchain versus distributed ledger technology. This is a lot of words. It's a lot of reading. If you want to read this, please do. I found it interesting. I'm not going to read it to you. It is at 101blockchains.com. Okay? It has some interesting information in there. I did read it the other night. It is interesting. That's why I included it here. But there is a difference. So blockchain is a type of distributed ledger. It's not the only type. Blockchain, Bitcoin, because it's a distributed computing platform, it is vulnerable to a particular kind of attack that most other systems are not vulnerable to, and that's called the 51% attack. So if a particular node controls 51% of the computing power for mining Bitcoin, they control Bitcoin, or can, okay? In 2014, if you look at this, Gosh.io controlled 50% of the computing power for Bitcoin. Bitcoin, by the way, has never been the victim of a 51% attack. They could have been. Gosh.io had the capability. But when Gosh.io hit 50%, what they did was they issued a statement and said, we are backing off to 40% control, and we will never go above 40% in the future. And they haven't. But in 2014, they could have had everybody who had Bitcoin by the balls, because they had the ability, and as I understand, they still do. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the only way to mine Bitcoin anymore, is you've got to be a conglomeration. Yeah, you can't just, in the beginning, you could have just set up your computer and mined Bitcoin. Not anymore, everybody else is too fast now because they have specialized computing. So, what is a 51% attack? What's the vulnerability? Why is it a big deal? I have 51% control over the computing power for mining this particular cryptocurrency, my cryptocurrency, okay? When I have 51% control, what I can do is create a fork that's private, nobody else knows about it, and on the public side of the fork, I can buy a luxury car with 1 Bitcoin. And yes, when I read that in an article the other day, I literally said, fuck you, to the article. 1 Bitcoin luxury car. Fuck y'all. Okay. Now then. Okay. But, okay, 2 Bitcoin. 3. Okay. Still. 3, at least 3. Okay.
It could be a used car. You buy a used car.
So anyway, so I buy a luxury car, okay, on the public fork. While I buy that, I spend that Bitcoin on the public fork. I am taking all the transactions except mine and hashing them into blocks, okay? And then when my private chain gets longer than the public one, when it gets longer than the public one, I broadcast it to everybody. Because my chain is longer than the other one, guess what? My chain is now the real one. And guess what? I have my luxury car and my Bitcoin. Okay? That's the danger of the 51% attack. I can double spend to my heart's content as long as I have that control. All right. Some instances of 51% attack. First one is Gosh.io. Didn't actually do it. Could have. Didn't. Alright. Krypton and Shift, August 2016. They were the victims. There are 2 cryptocurrencies based on Ethereum. They were the victims of the 51% attack. May 2018. Bitcoin Gold was the victim of a 51% attack. They stole $18 million of Bitcoin Gold before they were stopped.
How was they stopped?
I have no idea. Somebody else got some of the control and said, okay. Who here knows Magic the Gathering? Who here knows Mount Gox? Who here knows that Mt. Gox stands for Magic the Gathering Online Exchange? Okay, Magic the Gathering Online Exchange. It used to be an exchange for Magic the Gathering cards. Okay? Somehow, they became the biggest Bitcoin exchange in the world. Okay, until about 2012. They were the biggest Bitcoin exchange in the world. Okay? Until they weren't. When I first researched this in 2015, they thought it had to be an inside job. Had to be. There's no other way. Had to be an inside job. Just doing some updating on my information on this? No, they were just stupid. In 2011, they had somebody come in, an outside contractor. Okay, this is a vulnerability that anybody with computers in their business has. Outside contractor came in, plugged their computer into their network. They got infected. They lost Bitcoin. Okay, not a lot, but not relative to what they later lost a lot. They thought they fixed it. And then in 2014, in February of 2014, they went offline saying they had some issues. And later that month, they closed their doors and filed for bankruptcy in Japan and later in the United States. Because in February of 2014, they had no Bitcoin left. None. Zero. They believe they've tracked it back to 2011, when that vulnerability was introduced to their systems. Somebody out of Russia, I don't remember the guy's name, the FBI was involved in taking him and his Bitcoin exchange down in Russia. FBI in Russia, get that one, man. Okay? He slowly, over those 3 years, siphoned off all of their Bitcoin, every bit of it. When they first had their incident in 2012 where they lost some Bitcoin, they took some of their own Bitcoin that they owned and put it in cold storage. To me, what does cold storage mean to you? Air gap. It's not on the network, right? I had an image of, flash drive, office drawer, something like that, a safe, a pocket, something. That was gone too. Okay? So what they think happened to that is as people's accounts were running short because this guy was siphoning off money, they started backfilling with their own. Okay? Also in their code, somehow randomly people would just end up with 40,000 Bitcoin in their accounts. So they were just stupid. Okay? Personally, I thought it was pretty stupid to invest in a currency whose exchange was run by Magic the Gathering people. Okay? It is not... Really? Fortunately, the guy who created the website for Magic the Gathering cards sold it before all the shit hit the fan. Actually, he sold it, I think, before any of the shit happened. So, even the initial infection, he sold it in 2011, it was infected in 2011. Okay? So, he got away. Hopefully with some Bitcoin from his initial exchanges, but maybe not. But it's vulnerable just like everything else. And those are my sources. And yes, I sourced myself because that experienced person. Well, it was, I actually reread this, at least the one chapter, because I needed to have a place to start for this presentation. And I also wanted to give you guys all of the resources from that, but I didn't want to take up 5 things, so I gave you my thesis as a source, and you can look at it and look at its sources.
As you can see on the screen, it's really hard to see. I wish that we had a different angle, so if you have questions, let me know. But, and I'm going to delete all of this afterwards, so if you try to use these keys, I'll try to hunt you down and have some words, but just don't while I'm doing this presentation. It's only 20 minutes. But, so, in are you more focused on PowerShell or Python? What do you want to know? Just rate PowerShell, raise your hand. Python, raise your hand. Should be the other half. All right. So, we'll start with PowerShell. It's pretty PowerShell core. I'm running on Mac. You can run PowerShell core on Windows, but you have to have specific libraries and everything. Right now, PowerShell PowerShell core is like 6.2. whatever. But they're releasing PowerShell 7 in a couple weeks, which basically gets rid of Windows-based PowerShell, and it all just goes to PowerShell. And PowerShell core is on Ubuntu, any Debian, CentOS, whatever. type of operating system, Windows included. It will be baked in as part of the core library of all PowerShell. So one of the cool things over the history of PowerShell is they started going through the package management piece of how Python has pip, which pip stands for like 8 different things, but it's Python installer package or package, whatever the hell it is, or pip is Python, or pip is pip, I think is the other name. Like there's 100 different names. No one really knows, but it's called pip. Pip install, pip list, whatever. Those are the packaging. For PowerShell, everything is a verb and noun, which in the last session I ended kind of with that was packages or every commandlet built into the operating system or built into the platform is verb-noun. So whether it's invoke, get, set, whatever, and then you have a noun. So when there's event log, module, all this. And all of this is accessible by doing like the get dash command. You can list all your built-in commands, any third parties that you may have installed, all that through the get dash command. But part of this is going to be what we call, we're going to use the built-in since PowerShell 4, hope I'm right, or 5, is what they call install-module. Install-module is like pip for Python. So, if I open up a terminal, and I can actually, I'm going to sudo and pwsh, that's what they use instead of PowerShell as a name for PowerShell core, because they'll eventually probably go back to just regular PowerShell, but they needed a transitional name. So I'm going to sudo, and you can tell that I'm in a PowerShell console because of the PS in the front. And one of the built-in commands is install module. And one of the ones that we're going to actually do today is called PS Twitter API. It's a third-party package that someone published to what they call NuGet or the PowerShell gallery, and you can actually just download it. It's like pip. If you've ever been to pypy.org, that's where all the Python packages come out for pip for the most part. Or you can actually, with PowerShell, it's all called the PowerShell gallery. It's the same thing, basically. But one of the built-in commands is that PowerShell module, and we're going to do PS Twitter API, if I can spell it. And did I misspell it? Okay. So, I'm going to do, you can't see it?
I have some.
Is that clear? More? No? Still? Okay. Let me bring it over here. Is that better? Yeah. Kind of? Yeah, sorry for the screen. But if you want to just come up, you can actually look at it. It's install-module, PS Twitter API. Right now I'm actually adding a command called -force. It'll force install because I already had it installed. But we click force, and it basically will go out to the web, go out to that package manager, install it, and then we're good to go. Right? Pretty straightforward, just like that. And if you wanted to actually use that library, that third-party library, not one that's built in, just like the Python or whatever, you actually import that module. And here you can see in this code, import module PS Twitter API. Usually you would have error catching around this, like if it isn't installed, go ahead and install it because you want to have dependency. I'm just kind of showing you, again, pretty basic but more advanced. So we're installing that. And then what we're going to do overall, I guess I should explain this, is we are going to create and run. So I'm on Twitter, if you're on Twitter or not, at MS, like Microsoft, administrator. And that's what you're. So what we're going to do is we're actually, this is part of the project that I'm doing afterwards. Twitter didn't give me my access yet. Created a new account called AI to ML bot. And this is a joke account, because I think it's pretty funny. Any tweets that actually mention artificial intelligence, but don't mention machine learning, I'm actually going to retweet as a comment, fixed, you meant machine learning. Because artificial intelligence, that word, if you're not familiar, is totally taken out of context. True artificial intelligence means that you have passed what they call the Turing test. Turing is an old school, I think it's back in the 60s or even before that, maybe in the 30s, where the Turing test is a national or international standard where if it's like Moore's Law. If you're familiar with Moore's Law, but Turing would basically say if you're in a room and you're talking to a computer or something and you can't tell that it's a computer, then it is past official artificial intelligence. No one has ever passed this test, ever. They've done huge national studies with hundreds of people. So anyone that just says artificial intelligence, they're fucking lying, all of them. So just saying. Machine learning is a subset, same with neural networks, all that. Sorry, I'm not trying to go into learning a machine. Anyway, so machine learning, so basically this bot's going to say anyone that says any marketing account or whatever it is saying artificial intelligence, they're actually going to retweet and say, no, you really mean machine learning. They're going to hate me, but I don't care. So what we're going to do is once we actually install this module, we have to kind of understand a little bit about it, right? There's two different ways. You can use the help, hopefully they provided it in the commandlet, but I'm actually just going to go out to that actual website, the person that created it, and look at their documentation itself. So it's on GitHub, the source code. Most Python packages are probably going to be on GitHub or Bitbucket or something like that. And they have a whole bunch of commands, and they have like an example that I basically just copied, and we're going to add in, and we're going to actually create this bot. I made some modifications, and I'll kind of walk you through all of them. So, with PowerShell, the first thing we want to do in this first line is import that map. We want to actually import after it's already been installed. Again, you usually have error catching to install it, but we've already installed it. So, one of the things that we're actually going to create is what they call, it's an object in Python or in PowerShell. Everything in PowerShell is an object. It has keys, it has values, it has properties, it has methods. Part of this PS object, or really it's basically a dictionary, is what they call in Python, is some form of key equals to value. And I'm creating a bunch of them. And all of these are going to be my OAuth settings. And so if you wanted to actually go out and do this, you can go out to the Twitter API. You could say, go onto the website, sign in. Up in the right-hand corner, there's an app, create, fill in a couple forms, and then you get a key. And you get a couple keys. Done. Pretty easy to do. You enter them in here, and this will actually be all our credentials. I'm not going to explain OAuth 2 or any of that. If you want to, afterwards, you can have a beer, and it'd be awesome. But so one of the functions, or one of the methods that they have is called set Twitter OAuth settings. So we're just setting those settings within our operators, or within our environment. And this set Twitter OAuth settings, we can actually go and, luckily, because it's open source, we can actually identify the actual code. Can you see this? Bigger? It's kind of hard to see. But this is what you call a function. In PowerShell, it's called a function. And the keyword is function. In Python, and I'll show you that in a minute, it's actually called def, or definition. And that is a method. Method and function are the exact same. I mean, there's not really any difference. They have parameters. One language does it a little differently, but overall, a function is a set block of code that you want to always run. You always want to run this code in the same manner when you pass in parameters through variables or strings or whatever you want in your code. With PowerShell, they have a difference between regular functions, which we can write any function, and I'm just going to go up here. We can just say function, my function. Doesn't have to have any name, we're just giving it a name. And we just want to close it with brackets, with squirrely brackets or whatever, and that is a function. It doesn't do shit, but it is a function. But let's say we wanted to actually, you know, write something to the console that says, okay, this is my function. Okay. One of the cool things with PowerShell that you can't, you can kind of do it in Python, but you can just highlight any of the code and run it as standard. Because you can actually just run it in the console just as it is. If it's valid, it'll run. If not, you'll get a bunch of red and errors and all that shit. But I can actually say, maybe if I open up my terminal, sorry, I should have started this. So I changed my command to push, and sorry, my Visual Studio is having problems, so I'm just going to copy and paste. So what happens in PowerShell is when you actually run that block of code, it's actually going to load it into memory. And that means it hasn't ran. You're just defining what that function means. Same with Python. Just because you have it, it's not going to automatically run. You have to actually invoke it by calling it. Since I've just copied and pasted it in memory, it doesn't really mean anything. But if I type my function or my f, luckily in PowerShell we have a lot of tab completion. You can say it automatically said, okay, my function, now I actually am calling it. And what it does, I'm getting some errors because of permissions, I should have sudoed, but basically it printed out this is my function. Because I'm actually now invoking it. So, I'm going to delete that. Here, this is just a script. We're just going to call this a normal script. But we're setting those OAuth settings where we're passing in this OAuth settings value or variable that we've created. And then we actually want to go ahead and use one of the built-in methods of this class or this package or module. They actually call them modules in PowerShell. Packages are a bunch of different modules in Python. A single Python file is actually called a package. Really confusing. If that's not clear, please let me know. But a module is an individual function in PowerShell. A module is a set of functions in PowerShell, where package is the name of it. So we get Twitter search tweets, and we know that, based on my previous writing of this, one of the parameters is -q, and we're actually going to pass in, okay, artificial intelligence. This means that we're actually searching Twitter for any queries for the match or artificial intelligence, but I only want 10 of them because I don't want to get, basically Twitter will yell at me and say that I'm exceeding limits and shit. So, and we're taking all of that output and saving it into a variable called tweets. And that tweets variable, we're actually going to iterate over. Iteration is looping. We're going to actually take each one of those values in that variable, because there's 10 of them that we've specified. And we're actually going to run through each one of the properties called statuses. And we're actually going to run a method, because you can tell it's a method in PowerShell because of the parentheses. Everything in a method in both Python and PowerShell are going to be parentheses. That is a method. So we're going to say, okay, for each one of them, if it's not truncated, meaning the text string, we're looking at the property of that object. Here, let me show you what this looks like first. I'm just going to make a big comment block, just so I can run this. WSH, Twitter, Of course. Sorry, 1 sec. Oh my god. So what I'm doing here is to print this out. I'm using the right host commandlet, which is built in. That's how you do a print in Python. And I'm saying, okay, tweets.status, because that's just how the object is formatted. And we're going to run that, and it should print out. If I don't mess up things. So you can see there's a whole bunch of shit. A bunch. And part of this is going to be the different properties. We have a created app, and you can tell these are properties based on the equals method. All of them are going to be an equals value, key value. Say truncated, user, or geo is blank, so on and so forth. All those are properties of that object. So when we're actually calling this retweet, we actually are calling what one of the properties is called statuses, and we're doing so for each. Another one in this $_ means that object. So for each one, we're taking that object, that dot, and then the property, which is truncated. So if it's not true, meaning that the default value is false, we want it to be, or if it is true, we don't want it. Does that make sense? Is that logic? Okay. So if .text does not contain an equalizer or a way to actually evaluate that condition is using a dash not contains. There's a ton of them in PowerShell. I think 17 total or something like that. There's contains, there's in, not in, so on and so forth. There's tons of these equalizers. So you have to kind of dig through the docs to figure that out. But if it does not contain the word machine learning, the string machine learning, then we want to actually print out the text of that object, whatever that property is. And we want to ask a question. And here we're doing, in Python it's called input, PowerShell it's called read host, and it's going to ask me, okay, do we want to read you? Question. Type in yes, because I'm doing an evaluation right below it that says if my answer to that question in the prompt was yes, then we want to go ahead and read you. Yeah, let me try to run this and I'll show you. So it should loop through, and it'll say, okay, this is the text of that tweet that we just saw. Artificial intelligence, real SaaS, AI, I don't even know what the hell that hashtag is. Dash Danagraph. It's cool, but let's find something a little bit more interesting. So in there, I'm actually going to say no, because our evaluation again was, well, yeah, I can type it. Yeah, but I'm trying to do a demo. Artificial intelligence. See, that's the same damn one. Biden says instead of UMCA, we need to train America. Whatever. Yeah. How are we going to equip American workers to deal with artificial intelligence, Joe? All right. I guess there's a debate going on, so this is going to be fucking awesome. So for this one, I'm actually going to say yes, because I'd love to. And it exited, because I had a break in there which told it to exit after I selected it. So if I actually go to my Twitter account, and we look, perfect. So I retweeted saying fixed, you meant machine learning, by retweeting that tweet. Yeah. So this is actually an entire bot that will go live soon. They're gonna fucking hate me, and it's gonna be awesome, but I don't care. Yeah. So that's one thing, right? And so really, like in PowerShell, if we're going to look at this, we would honestly do, if you use Visual Studio Code, which is what I recommend if you're using PowerShell 4, even just regular PowerShell. Visual Studio Code's free, it's awesome, it supports any language. But one of the cool things about Visual Studio Code, if you have PowerShell installed, is there's built-in snippets, and these are code blocks that you can reuse and just edit. And that are really cool and really have the best practices in mind. One of them is called XEX commandlet. You can just type in commandlet, it should pop up. There's several, but we can actually copy that. All of this stuff is where you actually supply, in a PowerShell advanced function, you would actually supply individual lines, like give it a synopsis. So when I call get help on my function, or my commandlet that I've created, then I can actually get supply help to anybody that's ever going to use it, which is awesome because you don't have to write document. This is your documentation, and they know how to use this shit. It makes it so much easier. You'd be like, here, load this, you're done. You never have to talk to them ever again. And there's a bunch of different examples and like all that, but really the function, a basic function that we showed earlier was function, verb, noun. But to make it an advanced function, we actually use what they call this commandlet binding. Commandlet binding gives you a whole bunch of attributes that are extra that you don't have to work for. Like if you wanted verbose output, or if you wanted error logging, or if you wanted error action catching and error handling and all that stuff, it's already built in. You literally, all you have to do is commandlet binding and add a couple of different lines in here called write verbose, some string that you wanted to write, just like write host, and it would actually output if they call the dash verbose. If they don't, they'll never see that output in their script ever again. But it helps with troubleshooting, it just helps it make it more usable. Additionally, you have parameters, and the one thing and difference between Python and PowerShell is this parameter validation. Python is very limited. You have to do a lot of your validation of what types they are, any constraints around that parameter that you want. In PowerShell, you can actually just specify it all right here, and you never have to worry about the logic behind it. You can say, so for this example, you can say mandatory is true. You have to provide this parameter with a value, period. If you don't, I'm going to throw a bunch of red at you and you're shit out of it. I'm not going to use it. Python, to do that, you basically don't, and I'll show you here in a minute. There's mandatory parameters and not. Mandatory means there's no equals value, there's no default value to it. In PowerShell, you can set a default value. It's not really recommended. It's just say, I don't give a shit what you do. You're going to pass me this type. If you don't, I'm going to yell at you. But you can also set what position in the command that they're calling you. If you want it at the first position, last, whatever, you can specify that. You can actually provide things through a pipeline in PowerShell. So if you ever see PowerShell get help a pipe-like character up and down, and then another command or maybe another, that is actually taking the filtered value first, passing it over that think of it as a hurdle. It's literally just passing whatever you filtered over, taking that, and you can pass it over and keep going, but your data is going to keep getting smaller down the pipe. You can validate that it's not null, there's tons of different options as far as parameter validation. You can set aliases, so maybe someone doesn't want to type dash computer name, they just want name, because you're lazy, or whatever. You can set an alias to it. So, and there's tons of different ones. This is also called casting, so I'm actually making sure that this variable, no matter what you pass in, has to be an integer. It means it has to be a number and a string around it, no quotes or anything. It has to actually be an integer. So, there's a bunch of other shit in here, but this is the basis of an advanced function. If we're looking at Python, in Python, everything has to be imported. You have to install that package or that module or that library from a third party. And usually it's going to be py.org. So if you open up, if you just go to your browser and type pypi.org, pypi.org, any package out there that you can throw out something that you think would be cool to do, some product or whatever. What? Okay. I'm just going to do SQL. So there's 3,121 packages that have SQL. Right? Shitload, right? I'm going to do one like Tenable. There's 22 different Tenable packages that you can install and use. Got to go through here and make sure, like, look and see, which ones they want. Speaking of Tenable, you probably want to use PyTenable because it's written by them, but there's other ones out there. So part of that is once you actually install it with, let's say, your terminal. I'm going to exit out of this. I'm just in regular command shell now. You can do pip install, Tweepy. I already have it installed, so it's probably not going to say much. It's going to say, okay, my requirement is already satisfied. I've already installed it. I have all the dependencies, everything else. If I wanted to look at each, everything that I do have installed, you can do pip list. Yeah. Nah. That's why they're open source. And you should review those code. Make sure you're understanding what you're installing because there's been known, just like with Node and any other language out there, Node's been breached like how many times in package dependencies. Node.js, if you're not familiar, it's a JavaScript server and web version, but because it's open source and people just like, I'm just going to make someone else the owner for the week, and they downloaded crypto miners and shit, and it's like, oh my god, read through, understand what you're trying to, look at how many stars on GitHub, look at how many people are actually using it. There's only a handful, or there's a lot of comments, search and shit. Usually just Stack Overflow, Python, I want to do this thing. You'll find the top results will be like, oh, use this library. Still be cautious, but it's usually pretty good. But you can see all the ones that you actually have installed doing the pip list. I have a bunch, so you really should do what I'm doing, but I'm not going to talk about virtual environments or anything. But one of the things with, so just like Python or PowerShell, you have built-in commands. Python, you have built-in libraries, built-in commands that you can use. In the others, instead of doing that install module or import module that we were seeing in PowerShell, we have to do an import, whatever that name is. So in this case, it's Tweepy. Tweepy is Twitter API. Again, probably 3,000 of them out there. But Tweepy, I tried a couple of them, and most of them are broke and degraded, and you just don't maintain. This one that still works, so I use that one. Also, one of the cool things about PyPy is if I do search Tweepy here, part of it is that they'll have a homepage link, which usually will take you to GitHub or wherever for the source code, and you can look through that. But they also have so I know what the name is. So Tweepy they actually have their own website. It's usually something .readthedocs.io, and they'll have all their API references. For example, I've written PyAttack. It's PyAttack.readthedocs.io, and here's all the detailed documentation, how to use it, copy and paste this code, 2 minutes. All right. So we have all these kind of examples. Find something with good. If they don't have documentation, don't ever use it. It's just it means they just don't care. If it's not on PyPy, don't use it. If they don't put the effort to just put it in GitHub and never like, oh, you have to clone my repo and do a whole bunch of shit. Like, don't ever, just find something else, because there's probably something else out there.
People write documentation.
Yeah, I do. I love documentation because I don't want to ever remember what the hell I was thinking when I wrote this thing, or explain it to anybody else. I'm being honest. So part of, instead of there's basic functions in Python where they go def my function, and this is good for most people. And you're going to say my function, I'm going to give it my param1, my param2, and required param equals true. So the equals true doesn't really matter. It's really the equals anything. So this means that this is the default value for this. It's actually not recorded. Sorry, optional param. And the default value that I've set at it is true. It could be false. Could be any string that I wanted it to. Yeah, I don't care at this point. You can be none, whatever. It can be anything that it wants. There are some advanced things where you can actually specify the type, like this, but we won't talk about that. That's about all the parameter validation you ever get in Python. Like, there's no mandatory, and I mean, it's kind of built into each one of these that doesn't have an equal means it's mandatory. But you can't validate that what they pass in is in an empty space with a string. There's not. I mean, yeah, there's ways to do it, but basically all your validation should be underneath that function. And this function is all separated by this def. Def means definition, which means method, which means function. So, if we skip past that, and we're going to go into more and more advanced, is classes. This is where Python really shines. This is like the core of how it's awesome. So, a class is an object. An object is methods and properties. What you're doing in a class is you're defining what those methods and what those properties mean. And so in a class, you can create an instance. That means one single copy of that class or that object that you're creating. And you're defining what that object means. So in my example, I'm going to create a Twitter scraper object. I'm setting it to the type, or it's inheriting from an object, which is a default value in Python. But I'm also, this URL string is unique because it's before any function call. It's actually called a class method. Class method means it's static. It doesn't change from instance to instance. So I can create 100 different instances of Twitter scraper. No matter what, that value is always going to be the same because it's it's all about the class, not the object or the instance type. Here we're calling this def underscore, they call it a dunder method. Dunder methods or special methods in Python. You'll see them quite a bit, but dunder means double underscore. Double underscore at front, double underscore underneath or on the back side, but in it is an initializer. It means we're going to initialize this function. And I've required when you create this class or this object that you need to pass in these parameters, which are consumer key, consumer secret, access token key, access token secret. And I'm also, ignore that, it should not be there. We're actually calling that tweepy that we imported, and we're saying, because of this import statement here, we're saying tweepy.oauth handler, pass in and use two of these parameters that we passed in, and set it to this variable called auth. And then we're also saying auth dot, which has a method inside of that after we've created it, called set access token, and we're setting those access tokens. All of that is being set into what they call this private instance method. Self, if you ever see in Python, self dot is always an instance method, meaning it's not a class thing, so every method, every time you call this class, it will always change. It'll always be different on every single one. and it's only within that instance of that object that we're creating. If it's dash URL string, it doesn't have to have the underscore. It's just a best practice. It's always going to be static, no matter how many instances you have. So, one of the other things inside of this, I'm actually defining a specific method like get. This method is calling, saying, okay, I want to put my scope as this instance of this, so one instance, and I can pass in an optional parameter called sent ID. By default, it's set to none. Then I'm actually looping through and creating a whole bunch of tweets. So, or getting a whole bunch of tweets. So, based on our tweety library, we have a method called cursor. We're passing in our query, called artificial intelligence. Same thing we saw in the Powershell code. Count 10. These other ones are just there. I'm not going to really explain it, but there's other parameters on that method that we just won't go through. But for each one that it's actually found, I'm going to loop through and say for tweet, creating a variable called tweet on the fly. Doesn't really matter what it is. It could be love, it could be anything. Say for each one of these 10 that we found, if it equals, or if machine learning is not in instead of the dash not contains, is in the tweet full text, the entire text of that tweet, then I want to go ahead and update my status and retrieve. So, and then I'm also going to print out that full text. I'm doing this a little bit different, but let's see how it goes. So I'm going to call Python. You can do Python 2 by default on Mac or whatever. It's going to be just Python, which is Python 2. If you wanted Python 3, you just put 3 on. But we're just going to do Python 2 because why not? And then I'm going to give it the path of my Twitter.com. Hit enter. And I have kind of I have this raw input here, which is basically the reader, like it's a pause. It'll just pause until I hit enter. Continue on. In a dangerous and complicated world, understanding artificial intelligence, social media manipulation, I don't know what that is. So, by saying instead of, it's actually doing, and this one it's actually doing almost every one of these that I'm going to print out because I don't care. I just think they're fun. So I'll make a trend showing no signs of slowing down. Reimagining the future of travel and hospitality with who is doing it? Like I'm sorry. loving you live. Sorry, I don't even understand half of these. World's first living machine. Sorry. My language is bad. Alright, so we get the gist, right? Let's go look at our Twitter. Just refresh. Maybe. So I'm just going to go to my profile and you'll see a whole bunch of them in here. It says fixed human machine learning for AI business. I love how all of these are marketing companies and not like individuals. And you can see more and more. They did it like 8 times or whatever. I think it's funny, but so I'm also creating a Slack bot that does the same thing. You mentioned artificial intelligence in Slack. It'll actually replace your text and scratch it out into machine learning. We'll see how April Fool's goes when I release it. But any questions? I know I went long. Any explanation that you didn't get, that you want, too far, anything?
I have a question. Yep. I know Python is case sensitive and name a variable with all the Is PowerShell?
No, it is not case sensitive. Best practice is dual.
I keep it the same. But
yeah, it's camel, or not camel case, but Haskell or whatever the every word is capitalized from a public facing.
There is camel case except for the first word.
Yeah, like public facing, that's how it should be. But internal variables methods, it's typically best practice to actually use lowercase to the start. I don't really know why. It's just kind of best practice.
Statics are all capital, or I think
in Python, typically, yeah. Python, they'll be static. And where you saw at the very top, I have these underscore. I made my own private variables, meaning they're not really private. They'll never be private, but it's kind of a signifier if I was ever going to show it. Someone.
It's all carryover best practices.
Yeah, it's PEP. PEP, PEP, which is the standard. It's kind of. I don't even know what PEP is really. It's a whole bunch of documentation about best practices of using all of it. Some people, I love best practices, so I always try. What?
So this shit I ain't gonna read.
Yeah. So if you're interested in Python, I just released this. It's still early going, but I released quite a bit of shit through mostly work, but personal too. It's called Carcass. And Carcass is actually a Python command line tool that will actually create Python packages based on best practices for you. It'll create the output, the rough package. You basically give it Carcass as a name. You pass in like where you want it to create it, like on your operating system, and then you have to enter in. Okay, what do you want to give this name? I don't really care what it is. My name, my GitHub, blah blah blah, and then it generates. And you select these options, whether you want a logger class based on best practices, exceptions, co-op, automatic, but it creates this kind of structure, and it already has pre-built best practices around classes, methods, logging, importing, all that. If you just want to get a quick start, a really easy way to do it. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you want to know more, also github.com/MS administrator, Microsoft administrator. I actually have a 1,500 line each markdown file that is supposed to be side by side, one Powershell and Python. Then it goes through everything plus way more in detail history. Like it's basically a book.